knew something was wrong the moment my mother said my name like that. Not sweetheart, not honey, not even annoyed. Just my name, calm, careful, controlled. Emma, she said, we need to talk about the venue payment. I frowned, standing in my London kitchen, still jet-lagged, still unpacking. Venue payment? I asked. There was a pause. The kind that feels heavy. Then she said it. The $38,000 you agreed to cover. For a second, I thought I heard her wrong. Then I laughed. A short, confused laugh. I didn't agree to pay anything. Silence. Yes, you did. And right there, something shifted. Not confusion. Not misunderstanding. Something deeper. Something was wrong. Hi, my name is Emma Carter. And if you like real stories about family betrayal, hard truths, and what happens when people finally face consequences, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Because this story started with a wedding and ended in a way my family never expected. I work in compliance in London. My job is simple on the surface. I read contracts. I analyze details. I catch problems before they turn into something serious. It's not exciting, but it teaches you one thing very quickly. People lie, and when they do, the truth always leaves traces. I hadn't been home in over a year. Not by accident. My younger sister, Lily, had always been the center of attention. Emotional, expressive, the one everyone focused on. I was the opposite. Quiet, responsible. The one people relied on when things went wrong. The fixer. So when she got engaged, my parents went all in. Big venue, expensive details, a guest list that kept growing. It looked perfect. But weddings like that don't just cost money. They bleed it. Still, I went. 18 hours of travel. Time off work I couldn't really afford. Because at the end of the day, she's my sister. The first sign something was off came at the airport. No one was there. I waited longer than I should have. Checked my phone. Called. Texted. Nothing. Eventually, I took a cab. I told myself they were just busy. But something didn't sit right. The second sign came at the hotel. I walked up to the front desk, gave my name, and waited. The receptionist typed, paused, then looked up. "I'm sorry," she said. "We don't have a reservation under that name." I thought it was a mistake. Asked her to check again. She did. Still nothing. I stood there exhausted, holding my suitcase, realizing something I didn't want to admit. They hadn't forgotten. They just hadn't planned for me. So I booked my own room, didn't argue, didn't call, because something already felt off. The next day didn't make it better. My mom hugged me quickly, distracted. My dad barely looked up from his phone. And Lily? "You're late," she said. "I just got in last night," I replied. She shook her head. "We needed you." Needed me for what? No one explained. The entire day felt wrong in small ways. Conversations stopped when I walked into rooms. My parents exchanged quiet looks. Lily made comments that didn't sound like much. Until you really listened. "You'd think people take responsibility." Every time I asked what she meant, she brushed it off. By the time we reached the rehearsal dinner, I could feel it building. Everything looked perfect. The venue, the lights, the setup. But underneath, tension. Then Lily stood up to speak. She smiled. Thanked everyone for supporting the wedding. For a moment, everything felt normal. Then she said it. And not the people who ignored their responsibilities and showed up pretending they did nothing wrong. The room went quiet, and she looked straight at me. My chest tightened. "Excuse me?" "You know what I mean," she said. "No, I don't." Her expression changed instantly. The contract, the venue, the payments. Every person at that table turned toward me. And suddenly, I wasn't a guest anymore. I was the problem. "I didn't sign anything," I said. "You embarrassed us," she snapped. "I don't even know what you're talking about." That's when my dad leaned forward. "If you're going to pretend," he said quietly, "maybe you shouldn't have come." No one defended me. No one explained anything. Just silence and blame. Later that night, my mom pulled me aside. "Maybe it's better if you don't come tomorrow," she said. I stared at her. "You're uninviting me? You've caused enough stress." That was it. No conversation. No explanation. So I left. The next morning, 18 hours back to London. And the entire time, I kept thinking the same thing. I never signed anything. 3 days later, my phone rang. It was my mom. "When are you going to send the payment?" she asked. "What payment?" "The venue," she said. "You signed the contract." And that's when I said it. "Send me the document." There was a pause. Then she asked, "Why?" "Because I want to see what you think I signed." When the email came through, I opened it immediately, and the moment I saw my name at the bottom of that contract, next to a signature that looked almost like mine, I felt it, that quiet certainty. This wasn't a mistake. This was fraud, and they had no idea who they had just tried to blame. I didn't scroll right away. I just stared at the contract sitting on my screen, letting that feeling settle in. The quiet kind of certainty you get when something isn't right, even before you can prove it. Then I took a breath and started reading. At first glance, everything looked normal. The layout was clean. The venue details were correct. The payment terms were clearly written. It looked like every other professional contract I deal with every day. But that's the problem. I don't just glance at contracts. I read them. Slowly, carefully, I checked the names first. Then the dates. Then the payment schedule. Everything lined up perfectly. Too perfectly. Because real mistakes usually leave small cracks. This didn't. It felt intentional. Then I reached the bottom. And there it was. My name, Emma Carter. And next to it, a signature. My signature. At least that's what it was supposed to be. I leaned closer to the screen and zoomed in. Because signatures aren't just shapes. They're habits. Muscle memory. You don't think about them, you just write them. And this one was off. Mine is quick, slightly uneven. It leans upward without me trying. This one was slower. More controlled, too neat. Like someone had taken their time trying to copy it instead of actually writing it. I kept looking. The spacing between the letters was too even. The pressure didn't change the way it normally would. It didn't flow. It was careful, practiced. And that's when I knew this wasn't a misunderstanding. Someone had copied my signature. Deliberately, I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen, letting everything connect. The comments at dinner, the way they looked at me, the accusations, they thought I signed this. Or worse, they knew I didn't, and expected me to accept it anyway. I shook my head slightly and went back to the contract. Because there was one more thing I needed to check. The date. I found it near the bottom of the page and read it once. Then again. March 14th. I didn't even hesitate. I already knew where I was that day. But I checked anyway. Calendar, work system, email logs. 9:42 a.m. I was in a compliance meeting, logged in, active, surrounded by people, with multiple systems tracking every action. I wasn't just somewhere else. I was provably somewhere else. I exhaled slowly. They didn't just forge my signature. They put it on a day I could completely disprove. That's when the last bit of doubt disappeared. This wasn't confusion. This wasn't miscommunication. This was fraud. I closed the contract and opened a new folder on my laptop. I named it simply Evidence. Then I started saving everything. The contract itself, screenshots, copies, backup files. Then my real signature, pulled from official documents, bank forms, work agreements, placed side by side with the one on the contract. The difference was subtle, but it was there, clear enough for anyone who knew what they were looking at. Then I added my work records, login times, activity logs, meeting confirmations, everything time-stamped, everything undeniable. Then travel data, proof I hadn't left London. Piece by piece, it came together. Not a guess, not a feeling, a case. I sat back for a moment and looked at what I had built, and then I reached for my phone. 'Cause there was one step left. I needed to see how far this actually went. I dialed the venue. It rang twice before someone answered. "Good afternoon," she said politely. "I need to speak about a contract," I replied. "Of course, your name." "Emma Carter." There was a pause, typing. Then she said it. "Yes, I see your file." That was enough. They had me listed, responsible. I kept my voice calm. Who verified my identity when this contract was signed? Silence, just for a second. Then she answered carefully. "It was submitted electronically." "No ID check?" I asked. "No." I closed my eyes briefly. There it was. "I need you to listen carefully," I said. Her tone changed immediately. "Okay." I did not sign that contract. The silence this time was heavier. "I'm saying my signature was forged," I added. Another pause. Then she asked, "Can you provide proof?" I looked at my screen, at the folder, at everything I had just put together, and I said yes. Then I sent the email, and the moment I did, everything changed. Because this wasn't a family issue anymore. This was legal, and somewhere very soon, they were going to find out. I didn't hear from them that night, or the next morning, which told me everything I needed to know. The venue had contacted them. They knew. I went through my day like normal. Work, emails, meetings. But in the background, I was waiting. Not for an apology. Not for an explanation. For a reaction. It came in the afternoon. A message from my mom. "Emma, what did you do?" I stared at it for a moment, then locked my phone without replying. Because that question wasn't confusion, it was panic. A few minutes later, my phone rang. Then again. Mom, Dad, Lily. Over and over. I let it ring longer than I normally would. Not out of spite. Just control. For once, I wasn't rushing to fix something. On the 5th call, I answered. It was Lily. "Emma?" she said immediately, her voice tight. "What did you tell them?" I leaned back in my chair, calm. The truth. There was a pause. Short, sharp. "You didn't have to do that," she snapped. I almost smiled. I didn't have to correct fraud? "That's not what this is," she said quickly. I let the silence sit between us, because I wanted her to hear how that sounded. "We were going to fix it," she added. There it was. "We," I repeated. She hesitated, just for a second, but it was enough. "I mean, Mom and Dad," she said. They were handling it. I nodded slightly, even though she couldn't see me. "By forging my signature?" I asked. "You're making it sound worse than it is." I closed my eyes briefly, then opened them again. "Lily," I said calmly, "it's a crime." Silence. "You don't understand," she said, softer now. Everything was falling apart. The venue was threatening to cancel. Payments were due. We didn't have time. "And that made it okay?" I asked. She didn't answer. "They said you'd help," she continued suddenly. "They said you always come through. That you wouldn't let my wedding fail." I tightened my grip on the phone slightly. There it was. Not desperation. Expectation. "So the plan was to force me into it?" I asked. "No, we were going to tell you." "When?" I asked. Another pause. "Before or after I was legally responsible?" Nothing. That silence said everything. "You embarrassed us," she said suddenly, her frustration returning. "At the dinner, acting like you didn't know anything." "Because I didn't," I replied. "You could have handled it privately." I let out a slow breath. "You mean I should have taken the blame quietly?" "That's not what I said." "It is." Another pause. Then her voice changed slightly. "You've changed," she said. I frowned. "How?" "You're cold," she replied. "Like everything is a transaction to you." That one didn't hurt. It just clarified things. "No," I said quietly. "I just don't ignore reality." Silence. Then her voice dropped. "The venue is talking about legal action." There it was. Fear. "And?" I asked. "And you need to fix this," she said quickly. "Call them. Tell them it's a misunderstanding. Say you forgot. Just fix it." I almost laughed. "You want me to lie?" "It's not lying if you agree now." "That's not how this works." "Well, it should be," she snapped. "We're family." I went quiet, because that word kept coming up, like it erased everything. "Do you know what's going to happen?" I asked calmly. She didn't respond. "They're going to check everything," I continued. "Timestamps, submission data, where the contract came from." Her breathing changed. "And when they do," I said, "it won't lead to me." "Emma," she whispered, "you should have thought about that before using my name." "I didn't sign it," she said quickly. And just like that, she slipped. I sat up slightly. "You didn't?" I said. Silence. "Too late." "Then you know who did," I added. "I didn't mean—" "Lily," I said, calm and steady. "Who signed it?" She didn't answer, but she didn't need to, because now I understood something I hadn't before. This wasn't one mistake. This wasn't panic. This was planned. More than one person involved. One decision, my name, and whatever happened next wasn't going to stay in the family. The next call came from my mom. I let it ring once, twice. Then I answered. "Emma," she said immediately, her voice tight. "What is going on?" I leaned back slightly calm. "You tell me," I replied. A pause, then frustration. "You contacted the venue," she said. "Why would you do that without talking to us first?" I almost smiled. "I did talk to you," I said. "I asked for the contract. You sent it. That doesn't mean you had to escalate this." Escalate. That word stuck with me. "They have my forged signature on a legal document," I said. "What exactly did you expect me to do?" Silence, not denial. Just silence. We were going to fix it, she said finally. I exhaled slowly. How? I asked. Another pause. You don't understand the pressure we were under, she continued. Everything was already booked, paid for. The venue needed confirmation, or they were going to cancel everything. And that made it okay? I asked. No, she said quickly, but we didn't have a choice. I didn't respond right away, because that wasn't true. They had a choice. They just didn't like it. You could have called me, I said. We knew what you'd say. Exactly. You would have said no, she added. Yes, I said. Silence again. Then her tone shifted. Softer now. Almost pleading. Emma, this is family. We can't let this turn into something bigger. It already is, I said. You're making it bigger, she snapped. No, I replied calmly. I'm refusing to hide it. Her breathing became uneven. They're talking about legal action, she said. Do you understand what that means? I do, I said. Your father could get into serious trouble, she added, her voice dropping. There it was. The truth? I let that sit for a moment. You should have thought about that before using my identity, I said. We didn't think it would go this far, she said quickly. That's the problem, I replied. You didn't think? She went quiet. And for the first time, there was no argument, no excuse, just silence. Is he there? I asked. A pause. Yes. Put him on the phone. I heard movement. Voices in the background. A door closing. Then his voice. Emma. Calm. Controlled. Like nothing had happened. You forged my signature, I said. No build-up. No hesitation. Just the truth. A short pause. Then, I did what needed to be done. I stared ahead, expression still. You committed fraud, I said. Don't be dramatic, he replied. It was a signature, not a crime scene. That told me everything. This isn't going away, I said. It will if you stop pushing it, he said. Call them. Clear it up. End of story. No. The word landed firmly. Flat. Final. There was a shift on his end. You don't understand the position you're putting us in, he said. No, I replied. You don't understand the position you tried to put me in. Silence. Then his tone hardened. After everything we've done for you. I closed my eyes briefly. There it was. The guilt. The expectation. You don't get to use that here, I said. Another pause. Longer this time. Then. Fine, he said, colder now. If you want to handle it this way, don't expect things to go back to normal. I didn't hesitate. They already won't. The line went quiet. Then the call ended. I lowered the phone slowly and set it on the table. And for a moment, I just sat there, not angry, not upset, just clear, because this wasn't a misunderstanding anymore. This wasn't stress. This wasn't a mistake. This was a decision. They knew what they were doing. They just didn't think I would do anything about it. But now, that part was over. I reached for my laptop again and opened the email from the venue. There was a new message from their legal team. Short, direct. They had reviewed my evidence, and they were proceeding with an internal investigation. I read it twice, then closed the screen, because at that point, there was nothing left for me to do. This wasn't in my hands anymore. And for the first time since that phone call, I felt something settle. Not relief, not satisfaction, just certainty, because whatever happened next wasn't going to be controlled by them anymore. The next update came faster than I expected. 2 days later, I received another email from the venue's legal team. This one was longer, more formal, and very clear about one thing. They were no longer treating this as a simple dispute. They were investigating fraud. I read every line carefully, my eyes slowing down at the parts that mattered most. They had reviewed the contract submission, the timestamps, the access logs, and they had identified the source, an IP address, a location, and it wasn't London. I didn't react right away. I just sat there, letting that settle in, because now this wasn't just about my word against theirs. This was traceable, provable, real. A few minutes later, my phone rang. This time it was my dad. I let it ring once, then answered. His voice came through sharper than before. What did you send them? I leaned back slightly. The truth, I said. You sent them evidence, he snapped. Work records, signatures, all of it. Yes. You had no right to do that. I almost laughed. No right? I repeated. It's my name on the contract. There was a pause. Short, tense. You've made this worse, he said. No, I replied calmly. I've made it visible. His breathing grew heavier. They've traced it, he said. I didn't respond. They know where it came from, he added. I closed my eyes for a second. Good, I said. That wasn't the response he expected. You think this is a game? He snapped. Do you understand what they're saying? Legal consequences, financial liability. This could ruin everything. It already did, I said. Silence. Then, we were going to fix it, he said again, like repeating it would make it true. You keep saying that, I replied, but you never explain how. Another pause. Then frustration. We would have handled it, he said. You did handle it, I said. This is the result. That landed. Hard. You're choosing this, he said. No, I replied. You chose this when you signed my name. His tone shifted again. Lower now. More controlled. They're asking questions, he said. About how the contract was submitted. About the email used. About who had access. I listened. They're going to come back to us, he added. Yes, I said. They are. And you're just going to let that happen? I didn't hesitate. Yes. Another long silence. Then, you're really going to do this to your own family? That question didn't hit the way he expected it to. Because I already knew the answer. No, I said quietly. You did this to yourselves. The line went quiet again. Then he exhaled sharply. You've changed, he said. I didn't argue. Because maybe I had, or maybe I just stopped ignoring things. You're choosing strangers over us, he continued. I'm choosing the truth, I replied. That's not how family works. No, I said. That's exactly how accountability works. He didn't respond. And for a moment I thought the call had dropped. Then he said something that made everything clearer. They asked about the email. I frowned slightly. What email? I asked. Another pause. Then, the one the contract was sent from. My grip tightened slightly. Because that detail mattered. A lot. And? I asked. They traced it, he said. My mind moved quickly now. Connecting pieces. They know it wasn't mine, I said. No, he replied. Silence. Then, they know exactly whose it was. That confirmed it. Completely. This wasn't just a mistake. This wasn't confusion. This was documented. Tracked. Proven. I leaned back slowly. And for the first time since this started, I felt the full weight of it. Not emotionally. Logically, there was nowhere left to hide. They're going to contact you again, he said. I know. And when they do, I'll tell them the same thing, I cut in. That I didn't sign it. And that you did. The silence after that was different. Heavier. Because now, it was fully out in the open. You don't have to say that, he said quietly. Yes, I replied, I do. Another pause. Then, if this goes any further, he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. I understood exactly what he meant. Consequences. Real ones. I know, I said. And for the first time, he didn't argue. He didn't push back. He just went quiet. Because deep down, he knew it too. This wasn't something that could be undone, and whatever came next was already in motion. The next time the venue contacted me, it wasn't by email. It was a phone call, a number I didn't recognize. I answered anyway. Ms. Carter? A calm professional voice said. Yes. This is Daniel Reed from the venue's legal department. I sat up slightly. I'm calling to follow up on your report. I understand, I said. There was a brief pause, like he was organizing his thoughts. We've completed a preliminary review, he continued. And based on the evidence you provided, along with our internal records, we can confirm that the signature on the contract does not match your verified signature. I didn't react right away, not because I was surprised, but because hearing it out loud made it real in a different way. Okay, I said. We've also traced the submission details, he added. The contract was signed and sent from a device and network that does not belong to you. I expected that, I replied. I'm sure you did, he said. There was a slight shift in his tone, more direct now. Given these findings, we are moving forward with this as a case of fraud and misrepresentation. I let that settle, because those weren't casual words. They meant something. What happens next? I asked. We will be contacting the individuals involved directly, he said. And depending on their response, this may proceed to formal legal action. Involved, not suspected, not unclear. Involved. Do you need anything else from me? I asked. At this stage, no, he replied. You've been very thorough. That didn't surprise me. However, he continued, we may reach out again if further clarification is needed. Of course. There was a short pause. Then he added, I also want to assure you that you are not liable for any financial obligation tied to this contract. That was the part most people would have focused on. But for me, that was already clear. Understood, I said. And Ms. Carter, yes? You did the right thing by reporting this. I didn't respond immediately. Because right and easy aren't the same thing. I know, I said quietly. The call ended a few seconds later, and I sat there, phone still in my hand, staring ahead. It was done. Not the situation, but my part in it. I had done everything I needed to do. The rest was out of my control. My phone buzzed a few minutes later. A message from my mom. They called us. I read it once, then again, and put my phone down. Another message came in. This is getting serious. I didn't reply. Because now, they were finally where I had been from the beginning. Facing reality. A third message. Emma, please. I stared at that one longer. Not because I didn't understand it, but because I did. Perfectly. It wasn't about fixing the situation anymore. It was about avoiding the consequences. I picked up my phone, typed a response, then stopped. Deleted it, because there was nothing left to say. They already knew the truth. They just didn't want to deal with it. Later that evening, my dad called again. I let it ring, then answered. His voice was different this time. Quieter. They're moving forward, he said. I know. They said it's fraud, he added. I know. A pause. They're asking for statements. That made sense. They'll get them, I said. Another pause. They're not backing off, he said. No, I replied. They won't. Silence. Then, Emma, this is serious. I leaned back. I told you that from the beginning. He didn't argue. He didn't raise his voice. Because now, there was nothing left to deny. They're saying there could be legal consequences, he said. I'm aware. And financial penalties. Yes. Another long pause. Then, we didn't think it would go this far. I exhaled slowly. That doesn't change where it is now. He went quiet again. And for the first time, there was no attempt to shift blame. No attempt to control the situation. Just acceptance. This could affect everything, he said. I didn't respond. Because it already had. After a few seconds, he spoke again. What are you going to do? I frowned slightly. I've already done it. Silence. Then, you're not going to help? I thought about that question for a moment. Not emotionally. Logically? No, I said. Another pause. Then the line went quiet. And this time, he didn't try to call back. I set my phone down and looked around my apartment. Everything felt the same. Nothing had changed. And yet, everything had. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't the one fixing the problem. I was the one who stepped back and let the consequences happen. A few days passed without any calls, no messages, no updates. And for the first time since all of this started, everything felt quiet, not peaceful, just quiet. Like the kind of silence that comes before something bigger happens. I focused on work, meetings, reports, normal routines. But in the background, I knew things were moving. Not visibly, not loudly, but steadily. Then late one evening, my phone rang. I looked at the screen. Lily. I hesitated for a moment, then answered. Her voice was different this time. Not sharp, not defensive. Tired. Emma, she said softly. I didn't respond right away. I need to talk to you, she added. I'm listening, I said. There was a pause. They came to the house, she said. I sat up slightly. Who? The venue's legal team. And someone else. I didn't need her to explain further. I understood. And? I asked. They asked questions, she said. About the contract. About the email. About who signed it. Her voice shook slightly. They already knew most of the answers. Of course they did. They showed us the records, she continued. The timestamps. The IP address. Everything. I closed my eyes briefly. Because now it wasn't just a conversation anymore. It was evidence. They know it was Dad, she said quietly. I didn't react. Not outwardly, but hearing it said like that changed something. Not the truth. Just the weight of it. What happened? I asked. He tried to explain, she said. Said it was a mistake. That it was just temporary. That he was going to fix it. I almost nodded. That sounded exactly like him. But they didn't accept that, she added. No, I said. They wouldn't. Another pause. They said it doesn't work like that, she continued. That intent doesn't erase what was done. Exactly. I could hear her breathing on the other end. Uneven. They asked me questions too, she said. What kind of questions? If I knew, she replied. I waited. I told them I didn't sign anything, she said quickly. That wasn't what I asked. But did you know? I said calmly. Silence. Longer this time. I knew something was wrong, she admitted. But I didn't ask. That wasn't innocence. That was avoidance. They said that matters, she added. It does, I said. Another pause. They're going to move forward, she said. They told us directly. I know. They said there could be legal action, she continued. I know. Her voice dropped. Emma, this is real. I didn't soften. I told you that. There was a shift in her tone. Less defensive now. More exposed. I didn't think it would actually get to this point, she said. That doesn't change anything. No, she said quietly. It doesn't. Silence settled between us. Not tense, just heavy. I keep thinking about that night, she said suddenly. At the dinner, I didn't respond. The way I spoke to you, she continued. The way everyone looked at you. I stared ahead. You thought I did it, I said. Yes. The honesty was immediate. No hesitation. Yes, she repeated. I let that sit, because that mattered more than anything else she had said. And now? I asked. Another pause. I know you didn't, she said. That should have meant something. Closure, relief. But it didn't, because the damage wasn't just about the contract. It was about trust, and that doesn't come back that easily. They told us you're not responsible for anything, she added. I already knew that. I didn't, she said quietly. I exhaled slowly. Because that was the difference. I understood the situation from the beginning. They didn't. Emma, I'm sorry, she said. The words came out carefully, like she wasn't sure how they would land. I didn't answer right away. Not because I didn't hear her, but because I was deciding what that meant. An apology doesn't erase what happened. It doesn't undo decisions. It doesn't change outcomes. It just acknowledges them. I know, I said. And I meant it. There was a small pause. Then she asked something I wasn't expecting. What happens now? I thought about that for a moment. Not emotionally. Logically, they follow through, I said. And us? She asked. That was a different question. One I didn't answer immediately, because the truth was, I didn't know. I don't think anything goes back to the way it was, I said finally. Silence, then a quiet response. Yeah. No argument, no denial, just acceptance. After a few seconds, she spoke again. Dad's not saying much, she said. Mom's stressed. I didn't react, because that wasn't surprising. They're both scared, she added. I leaned back slightly. They should be. Another pause. Then, I wish we had just told you the truth, she said. I nodded slightly, even though she couldn't see it. So do I replied. The call ended not long after that. No tension, no anger, just distance. I set my phone down and sat there for a moment. Thinking, not about what happened, but about what it meant. Because this wasn't just about a contract, or money, or even the fraud. It was about something deeper, something that doesn't fix itself. And for the first time, I accepted that some things don't go back. They just move forward. Different. The final update came a week later. Not from my parents. Not from Lily. From the venue. Another call. Same calm, professional tone. Ms. Carter, I wanted to inform you that we've concluded our investigation. I listened quietly. We've confirmed the contract was signed without your authorization. Based on the evidence, we are proceeding with action against the responsible party. Responsible party. Not unclear, not shared, specific, and you are no longer associated with the contract in any capacity, he added. I understand, I said. There was a brief pause. Then, if anything further is required, we'll contact you. The call ended shortly after. And just like that, it was done. Not the situation, but my part in it. I sat there for a while after that. Not reacting, not celebrating, just processing. Because for weeks, everything had been moving. Calls, messages, tension, pressure. And now, stillness. My phone buzzed a few minutes later. A message from my mom. It's over. I read it once. Then again. Another message followed. They're holding your dad responsible. I didn't reply. Because there was nothing left to say. A few hours later, Lily called. I answered. Her voice was quiet. It's official, she said. I know. They're moving forward with it, she added. I know. A pause. Then, everything's different now. I looked around my apartment. At the same walls. The same space. Unchanged. Yeah, I said, it is. She didn't try to argue. Didn't try to explain. Because there wasn't anything left to defend. Mom's not handling it well, she said. I figured. Dad's quiet. That made sense. Because for the first time, he couldn't control the situation. I keep thinking about everything, she said. So do I. Another pause. Then, I wish we had just asked you, she said. I let out a slow breath. That would have changed everything. I know. Silence settled between us again. Not uncomfortable. Just real. Do you think things will ever go back to normal? She asked. I didn't answer right away. Because that question sounds simple. But it isn't. No, I said finally. And this time, there was no hesitation. She didn't argue. Didn't try to convince me otherwise. Yeah, she said quietly. We talked for a few more minutes. Not about the situation. Not about blame. Just normal things. And somehow that felt stranger than everything else. After the call ended, I sat there for a long time, thinking, not about what they did, but about what I learned. Because this wasn't just about a contract. It wasn't just about money. It was about boundaries, about responsibility, about the moment you realize that being the reliable one doesn't mean sacrificing yourself for other people's decisions. They thought I would fix it, that I would stay quiet, that I would carry the weight like I always had. But this time, I didn't, and that changed everything. I didn't cut them off completely, but things were different. Distance, space, clarity, because sometimes understanding people doesn't bring you closer to them. It shows you exactly where you stand. And here's the truth. The hardest part wasn't the fraud. It wasn't the accusations. It wasn't even being thrown out of the wedding. It was realizing they expected me to accept it, but I didn't. And because of that, they finally had to face something they never expected. Consequences. So if you take anything from my story, let it be this. Being strong doesn't mean staying silent. Being responsible doesn't mean fixing everything. And family doesn't mean you let people cross lines that would never be okay anywhere else. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is step back, tell the truth, and let things unfold, even if it changes everything.